Hi, this again. Welcome back into the Spaceman 2.0, helping to illustrate Spaceman, A View from Space, AVFS. It came on every Saturday night. So we're just going to take a look at 27 on Chorus Radio, 640. Before that, it was 610. I think another one before that. 2017 1111 show, and what he has to teach us, because his information is timeless.
Extreme radio for extreme times. This is A View from Space with the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640.
Right now, if you're listening to the radio, maybe listening via the radio player channel free on Apple Music, I welcome you in also. At home, logged on to 640toronto.com. Wherever you are in the world, I welcome you in.
So, part one and part two, we went over the first hour and a half of this, so we're going to just click it up to about here.
But no explanation of who Lannis supposedly killed is ever given. Russia wants cash for technology and weapons. Then there's Iran's alliance with Pakistan, who is in its own ethnic struggle against India. On the back burner, Taiwan and the Chinese wanting to annex it. Iran also puts his fingers into the Palestinian cause against Israel.
Timeless words.
Headlining.
Look what's happening today. Iran got...
The headline was...
Israel and USA, I think, just made another strike on Iran today. Look how timeless these words are.
But Prince Salman is stepping up the war in Yemen, the proxy war that's being fought against Hezbollah, who are really Iran or funded by them. And I've mentioned this before, the various individuals warning us, the world, that new secret technologies are being developed by nations and criminal elements which can alter and actually create destructive weather systems, such as super hurricanes that we've seen this summer, tornadoes, blizzards, through what's called scalar physics technology. The same technology can be used to trigger geological activity like earthquakes, the one in Mexico recently, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis even. Scalar physics can also be used to create strange illusions in the sky and combined with other secret technologies.
This was today on Iran.
They can be used to create phony religious experiences, to take it even a step further, like the voice of God speaking directly to people en masse. That technology actually is available now. Through, of course, the story have you heard about Cuba supposedly ruining the hearing of some American diplomats over there? That's what that technology is.
Look at this, scalar technology. Tom Bearden made this famous.
It shouldn't take much imagination to figure out the possible scenarios of these capabilities.
If you haven't heard of scalar technology, you can basically control minds, make consciousness drop out of the bodies. Mind snapper mode, check that out. Free energy devices. Again, watching a view from space using your computer. You can verify all that's being said.
That they can create the kind of destruction, the chaotic situations that they do.
How do you think the weather's controlled? Scalar, HAARP?
And the Illuminati's plans, which is going to be used over and over to further their goal. Hang on, because it's only going to get faster. Now, by far, the most asked question of me in my emails is Donald Trump an Illuminati member? The answer right off the top is yes.
Timeless.
People say then, how come he's positioned as being the voice of the poor, the middle class, and champions all average people's beliefs? It's simple. It's Satan versus Satan. And the winner, Donald Trump in this case,
Satan
parades around as the savior.
Gary Bell.
When you have
Space.
evil fighting evil, and evil wins, calling itself the savior. They're using Donald Trump as the man who will appear to do the will of the people, not the special interest groups anymore, the way it was.
2017, 11/11, he put this out. Look how timeless these words are.
But he's going to be showing not to be able to do it and fail, showing you that you cannot be a person who will close his borders, have everything pointing his way. He's the wolf in the henhouse dressed up as a chicken. It's a Spaceman's Talk Radio, AM 640 mornings. I'm the guy that calls Spaceman's Talk Radio, AM 640. Shows a view from space. That's all it is. Emails to space@640toronto.com or spaceman@640toronto.com. Thanks for the one you sent. Now, because it is imperative, I mean, you have to grasp this at the top of what I'm about to get into here with you in order for you to completely understand what I'm going to present to you. You have to know simply the definition of religious words. The two words are crypto and Judaizer. The first word is crypto, as it pertains to crypto jewelry. Definition of crypto is just this, in case you didn't know or you have to check. I'll check for you. It's a person who adheres or belongs secretly, keyword, to a party, to a sect, or other group, someone who belongs to a secret society. That's all crypto. The word you must know the exact meaning of to fully understand this concept is Judaizer. The word Judaizer has a Christian origin. It's taken from the Greek verb iudaizo, meaning live according to Jewish customs. This word is most widely known from the single use in the New Testament, Galatians 2. Verse 14, where Paul publicly challenges Peter for compelling Gentile believers to Judaize. This event is also known as the incident at Antioch to knowledgeable Christians. According to the concise Oxford Dictionary of World Religions, this word includes groups like Jewish Christians, Caucasians, Ethiopian Christians, descendants of English Puritanism, like the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and others who claim the necessity of obedience to the Mosaic laws, which are found in the first 5 books of the Christian Old Testament. Through this is something likely disputed by members belonging to these groups, especially by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, also known as the Mormons. To them, the word Judaizers is a negative, a very bad thing. By the way, in America, the Republican Party actually had a Mormon running for the leadership of the party to be the president of the United States. His name was Mitt Romney, named after the hotel magnate J. Willard Marriott, his father's best friend. Yeah, the Marriott Hotel chain is owned by Mormons.
Marriott or Mariano?
They also own Bain Capital, which owns Canada Goose clothing apparel. Oh, and many others. Staples. It's the elite, rich, and powerful who create religions, these people. They've always been in power. 1952, Mitt Romney's father, a former governor of Michigan, was CEO of American Motors, and his father's cousin, Milton Mitt Romney, was quarterback for Chicago Bears from 25 to 29, 1925 to 29. The founder of the Mormon religion was Joseph Smith. I referred to him earlier in the show. And his inner circle of family members, they were all polygamists. They all married one another. They're sun worshippers. This is an original family of Cain's idea, by the way, polygamy. Lamech, as a matter of fact, was the very first ever polygamist on the earth. He's the sixth generation descendant of Cain. Genesis 4, verse 18, you'll find it there. His father was named Methuselah, and he was responsible for the Song of the Sword. He's also the first polygamist to take two wives. Their names were Ada and Selah. Tubal Cain is one of the sons. The Song of the Sword, by the way, is an ancient story, and at the last part of the tale of Lamech in Genesis 4, verses 23 through 24, takes the form of a brief poem, which actually refers to the curse of Cain. In the poem, Lamech's stance resembles that of a supreme warrior, able to avenge himself absolutely. But I'll explain it.
Now, going back into Tubal Cain, right here, known as the first blacksmith. So he made swords and taught his people how to fight through metallurgy. Okay, remember that. And Tubal Cain was two balls and a cane. 2 zeros, a cane is a 7. 207, 007. The true reason why they call the secret spy 007, because he's a two-ball Canaanite.
Nation of who Lamech supposedly killed is ever given. Some biblical researchers have proposed that it's connected to the invention of the sword, the world's very first weapon, made of steel, not wood. Since his son Tubal Cain was the first blacksmith, which is, of course, the science of melting rock, extract metal, pound it while it's hot, cool it, and you have this weapon called the sword. That's the reason the poem is often referred to as the Song of the Sword. Of course, it's exactly the same today as it was then. Today, the greatest weapons belong to the same family of Cain, bloodline members. I just told you about one under the very top of the show, the XS-1, made by Boeing, going into production very shortly. That is an unmanned aircraft that can lift up 3,000 pounds and more into near-Earth orbit without the use of a rocket lifting it off from Earth, and lands just like an airplane. The XS-1. Also the F-18s, the F-35, the guided missiles, the weapons of mass destruction, as they're all called today, all belong to the family bloodline of Cain. This bloodline's father, who is Satan, has the same plan as he has had since the earliest of times, and that is to exact revenge on the true God by destroying all of the true God's creation. That includes you, me, and this very earth. Why do you think he's been polluting it for so long with his corporate
vertical takeoff
and blaming it on you?
Horizontal landing.
You didn't invent plastic bags. You didn't pump all the oil out and get everybody hooked on it. He now has the weapons
DARPA.
To bring into the world.
Remember, DARPA came out with the first internet called the ARPANET in 1967 for control of command of the military. So we're 50 years behind in any, 50 at least behind in any technology we have.
A nuclear conflagration. This bloodline has successfully obscured the truth by hiding it in religions that have been mixed inextricably with what they call mythology, which is really their lies about their father and god Lucifer. They are now in the process of pitting those major religions against one another, called the Global War on Terrorism, which will morph into the Third World War. This coming global conflict will be used to force the world's population into accepting their final kingdom here on Earth. The great work will be finished. It'll be run by Satan himself, who possesses a willful king, which will be the culmination of thousands of years of work.
I just can't help but interrupt because, remember, they're making a strike on Iran right now. And Iran probably does not have a Rothschild bank. That's why they went into Iraq in 92, Afghanistan in the 2000s, and then they just went into Syria as well. These are all places that didn't have a Rothschild bank. Iran was the last place to withstand having one. Now they're going to have one. And that will be that act, the final act of taking over the Middle East. So that's the only, really, is truly the war on banking. Iraq was destroyed because they didn't have a Rothschild bank. And Saddam Hussein wanted to start making money created backed by gold. And then Libya did that too with Gaddafi. He went to the same military academy as Prince William. And so he got too big for his britches, wanted to start making his own money backed by gold, get out of the bankers' clutches. And what did they do to him? So they build you up, but then they tear you down if they want.
The word is called gold, which is the one world global empire under one king with only one religion. The other religions twisted, contorted, proven to be and will no longer be needed. So let's see today how they've taken the religions and altered them. This current ruling empire we live under is called the American Empire. It's the economic engine of the world, still by most part, the policeman of the world, but not for long. This one is about to crash to allow the new one to arise. It's the story of the myth of the phoenix they're acting out. The scarlet and golden phoenix bird is synonymous with rebirth and recovery, especially after calamity. Originally from the traditions of ancient Phoenicia, the original homeland of the tribe of Cain, the phoenix has a counterpart in many other cultures. The phoenix is said to have an entrancing song. In other words, it's convincing when you listen to it, captivating enough to make even the sun stop and listen. So if the phoenix is injured, it can heal itself. It enjoys a lifespan of about 500 to more than 1,000 years, just like the empires that they represent and are built by the elites. They consider the phoenix to be a lonely creature that cannot reproduce. And it is one of its kind only. So just as with empires in the world, there can be only one alive at a given time. When the phoenix reaches the end of its lifespan, it's set to build itself a nest of rare aromatic spices, and then sets the nest and itself on fire and is burned to ashes. Do you think this is not going to be repeated here for the American Empire? It will. Shortly, the phoenix will rise again and begin its life anew. Out of the ashes rises the new empire, and in some traditions, the new phoenix gathers up the ashes of the old and takes them to Heliopolis to offer them to the sun god. There's sun worshippers that are leading our world today. The American Empire was set up by Cain's descendants. After the Second World War, it's really the lion's whelp. The lion, of course, represents the line of Judah. Jacob assembles his sons before his death and speaks to them in a combination of blessings, curses, warnings, psychological assessments, parables, recollection of hope. He speaks to each son separately, too, in poetic language that certain scholars associate with the ancient tribal songs and memories. Yeah, when I return, Talk Radio AM 640 on Space. It's the Spaceman at AVFS. Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. As I said before, the American Empire, the British Empire before that, all set up by Cain's descendants. The Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the ancient Egyptian Empire, the Babylonian, same bloodline. So America was set up by the lion's whelp. It's really the lion's whelp. Represents the line of Judah. Jacob assembles his sons before his death and speaks to them. And a combination of blessings and curses is said before the break. Judah's first, fourth son of Leah, described by these famous words. Judah is a lion's whelp. On prey, my son, have you grown? He crouches, lies down like a lion, like the king of beasts. Who dare rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet. The celebrated metaphor of Judah is a lion's whelp, meaning young offspring, of course, is one of strength, one of daring. The Lion of Judah has become a favorite motif, as a matter of fact, in Jewish art and folklore. It's acquired messianic associations. Yeah, I mean Messiah. The symbol of the Lion of Judah is a lion with a crown on its head. Tell me where you've seen that before, recall that before. Why, it's the symbol of the family that now resides in Buckingham Palace, who's also claimed to be the descendant of the house of David, from which King James' version of the Bible states the King of Kings to come must be from the house of David. They're in fact imposters and are of the tribe of Dan, who is the family of Cain. But through their trickery and black magic, will be known to be able to trace their lineage back to the house of David. Through the Merovingian bloodline of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene having children, becoming the crown heads, all the crown head families of Europe. That's why the Da Vinci Code and Dan Brown is so important.
So you see here on their coat of arms, which the Windsors go back to Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, which is German. They were just having a fight with their family, who was German, took over Russia, and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, look at this. The rampant lion. And what does the unicorn represent? Lucifer. And you shall see that this is chained on Charles, but not on William's coat of arms. The Lion of Judah, look at that, a rampant lion. And even the tribe of Judah goes back to the Aryanic race, or the Aryan race, which they say Hitler was trying to create and perfect. Well, it shows it right there. He's trying to create and perfect their Zionist plan of them creating their own perfect man. The coat of arms says it all.
In these latter times, that's the blueprint. In the book of Deuteronomy, Moses blesses his people before his death. In the tradition and the spirit of Jacob's prophetic prayer, in Deuteronomy, lion-like strength and prowess are applied to Gad and Dan, not to Judah. And of Gad, Moses said, "Blessed be he who enlarges Gad. Poised is he like a lion to tear off arm and scalp." And of Dan he said, "Dan is a lion's whelp that leaps forth from Bashan." Dan, in fact, is compared to the same lion's whelp used to describe the powerful tribe of Judah in Genesis. Now more imposters. Here come the Church of the Latter-day Saints. Claims Mormons are descended from the tribe of Ephraim. This religion, an ancient one, began anew in America, where you could go to make up your own religion if you wanted. When America was founded, that's how they populated it. You don't like the religion you're at? Go over there, start another one. You can make yourself a god. It was in New York State where Joseph Smith, the founder of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, moved his flock of followers to Pennsylvania and to Ohio and Missouri, and eventually Illinois. When the Mormons were kicked out of Missouri, they settled in Illinois. It was there in 1844. Joe Smith announced his candidacy to run for the presidential office, President of the United States. That summer, after a newspaper criticized Smith's practice of polygamy, the Nauvoo, Illinois City Council ordered the paper closed. During the fight that ensued, Smith first declared martial law and then surrendered to the governor of Illinois. Although the governor promised his safety, Smith was murdered while he was in jail awaiting his trial to start in Carthage, Illinois. Mitt Romney's great-great-grandfather was none other than Parley P. Pratt. Parley P. Pratt was one of the first leaders of the Church of the Latter-day Saints in the early 19th century and originally a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Because all Mormons are in that day, Parley Pratt was a practicing polygamist, had 12 wives. One of his greatest great-great-grandsons, as I've already said, is Mitt Romney. Interesting, too, here. The Book of Mormon claims that Jesus appeared as the god Quetzalcoatl in South America, the New World. But history states the Catholic Church's conquistadors tried to obliterate all signs of the truth of Jesus Quetzalcoatl in the New World by burning the codices, the written word. But we're told they didn't destroy them all. Mitt Romney, isn't the only member of the Merovingian bloodline that's made a bid to become the president of the United States, Every single president they've ever had is part of the Merovingian bloodline. Because you see, you're really not elected president of the United States. You are born to be. So if Judaizers play a major role in the formation and establishment of the Roman Catholic Church, is it possible that Roman Catholicism was a Jewish Kabbalist project from the beginning? There is, in fact, a long, fascinating history of Jewish infiltration of the Roman Catholic Church, which has been, nonetheless, and by clever design too, perceived as a Gentile institution. If Roman Catholicism was a project of Kabbalist Jews for the purpose of subverting Christianity. It's conceivable then that Judaized church has functioned for nearly 2,000 years as a covert branch of Kabbalism. Sun worship, black magic, Enoch, Judaism, whose handlers gradually and imperceptibly twisted and contorted Western Christianity to what we have today, with the many different watered down and changed Bibles that have been printed. That was possible during the vigilant period of the early church, when only priests, if you recall way back when in history, were ever allowed to read the Word of God. Yes, it's totally obvious that Jesus married Magdalene, and that lie is a deception of enormous magnitude from Merovingian claims to divinity, pointing to lineage from another source altogether. But that's what they're going to do, and DNA is going to be used in proving this fact. According to a Hebrew source for navigating the Bible, the sons of God were the Titans, the Nephilim in Hebrew, literally meaning fallen ones. They were called this because they were the sons of fallen angels. This demonic ancestry of the Merovingians is explicitly stated on Dagobert's Revenge in Edouard de Ligonnier's essay called The Biological Basis of Elitism and Divine Right to Rule. It's the all-important element of this whole game the elite are playing on us. This divine right to rule that comes from supposedly God or the gods, or who really were these gods? Authors like Zachariah Sitchin, late Sir Lawrence Gardner, Nicholas de Vere were authoritatively convinced that kingship was created by an advanced race of beings called the Anunnaki, or the Nephilim, as I was referring to them in the earlier part of the show in the Old Testament. These were the ones who created the human race, ate a bread with them, and created this kingly caste, which were half man, half gods, these celestial creatures that have been variously identified with dragons, elves, fairies, gnomes, leprechauns, sprites, nymphs, pixies, angels even, demons, devils, witches, giants, vampires, werewolves, all of those things. And just about every mythical being you can imagine. Some like Gardner and Sitchin actually claim they come from another planet. Others like De Vere say that they're multi-dimensional, or that they're from the hollow earth. According to the Book of Enoch, the Kabbalah is the prophet, translated by Richard Lawrence, and the Nephilim are described as descending from Mount Hermon. And as recounted in the Dead Scrolls, in the days of Jared, 200 watchers descended on Ardis, the summit of Mount Hermon. Demons.
Mythical here.
Equated with the triple peak of Jebel Esh.
But real here.
That's about 9,200 feet. Hidden in a mountain placed in the most northerly region of ancient Palestine. The Dead Sea Scrolls, by the way, include the earliest version of the Book of Enoch too, which was rejected by the Council of Nicaea, which shows everything that went into your King James Version of the Bible. The scrolls were authored by the monastic Essene community of Qumran. In those days, the Essene would be akin to what we would call the green movement today. You know, all about nature. Believed to be the tribe of Dan, which brought back the pre-flood paganism, which brought back Baal worship to the Canaanites. The location of the Nephilim's descent, Mount Hermon, also called Mount Zion, by the way, is in the territory of Dan, whom I believe that tribe will the Antichrist come from. It's formerly the land of the Canaanites in northern Israel, according to the Atlas and biblical lands. Part of that tribe of Dan, unable to secure its inheritance, migrated north then and captured Laish, renaming it Dan. It's a spaceman. And a view from space on Talk Radio AM 640. With more to come right after this break. You gotta call a spaceman. This is Talk Radio AM 640. Emails, please send them to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. I really appreciate the one you've sent. I really do, and I thank you so much for it. Now, according to the Book of Enoch, Kabbalah, Prophet was translated by Richard Lawrence, and the film are described as descending from Mount Hermon. Here's the actual words. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw them, handsome and beautiful daughters, and desired them, meaning the human ones. And they were altogether 200. And they descended into Ardos, which is the summit of Hermon. And they called the Mount Armon, for they swore and bound one another by a curse. That's in the Book of Enoch. As recounted in the Dead Sea Scrolls in the days of Jared, a couple of hundred watchers descended on Ardis. As it repeats what I've just talked about. In a different place, the summit of Mount Hermon, a mythical location equated with the triple peak of Jebel Sheikh, a mountain about 9,200 feet high, placed in the northern region of ancient Palestine. Dead Sea Scrolls include the earliest version of the Book of Enoch 2, which was rejected by the Council of Nicaea, as I said before the break. And the coast of the children of Dan went out too little for them. Therefore, the children of Dan went up to fight against Leshem and took it, and smote it with the edge of their sword, and possessed it, and dwelt therein, and called Eshem Dan, after the name of Dan, their father. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Dan, according to the families. These cities with their villages. That's recorded in Joshua 19, verses 47 through 48. And they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan, their father, who was born unto Israel. Howbeit the name of the city was Laish the first. That's recorded in Judges, Book of Judges, chapter 18, verse 29. The northern area of Palestine, Mount Hermon, happens to be located right smack dab in the 33rd degree, both latitude and longitude, according to the Paris zero meridian, by the way, used before the Greenwich International zero meridian that was established later on in 1884. But the original one, Mount Hermon, was at 33rd degree latitude, 33rd degree longitude. Saint-Sulpice, who died in 647, by the way, a contemporary of St. Dagobert, also has the feast day on January 17th. He was the second bishop of Bourges, which is on the zero meridian of Paris, like Rennes-les-Bains, and was successfully in converting all of the Jews of his diocese. He was the protege of the goldsmith Saint Eloi, Grand Vizier of Dagobert I. He was an ancient bloodline member. And the famous seminary and church dedicated to him in Paris still to this day contains the obelisk with a copper line down the center marking the exact point of the meridian, Saint-Sulpice, and the grounds of the Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Had connections with the Priory of Sion, too, from its foundation. The zero meridian is, in fact, today's 33rd degree longitude. Monasteries, often French for the occult, as well as homosexual activity, the Merovingian infiltration of the Christian world was done through monasticism. confirming many people's suspicions that many Catholic religious communities were steeped in Gnostic occultism, and that these Gnostic cults were actually points of entry for the Merovingian bloodline to be party to the papacy. Slip them in as the heads, control the church. St. Gregory the Great was the first of the 50 Benedictine monks who would become Pope. Merovingian Franks, around 450 to 741, built monasteries as a means of infiltration of the population. The Merovingian monasteries later became Benedictine or Cistercians. Pope Gregory the Great promoted Benedictine monasticism. His feast day is the day he became Pope, September 3rd. That was way back in 590 AD. This was accomplished by the infiltration of the church, and Gregory was part of that infiltration. September 3 then became a day of victory for the Red Movement, as it's called, when he was installed as their Pope. For Gregory marks the history of the papacy in that he was the very first monk all time to become a pope. The origins of monasticism began in, are you ready? Where would you think? Monasticism actually began in Egypt. Hermes Trismegistus, the Greek Neoplatonist name for the Egyptian god Thoth, who was the founder of alchemy, geometry, the prototype of the hermit. One that lives alone and is rarely ever seen. In the philosophy of Plato and the Neoplatonists, spirituality increased, and earthly values demonized. The famous Egyptian hermit, Saint Anthony the Great, lived from 251 to 356 AD, was the founder of the Eastern monasticism and mystery religion schools, as well as the founder of the most influential figure in the development of pre-Benedictine monasticism. In the 4th century, monasteries were taken and established all over Europe by Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, who was deeply influenced by Saint Anthony, if you do your proper research. Anthony of Egypt, the strict self-denial practicing brother of the sun god and founder of Eastern monasticism. Demons permeate this guy's legend. He's passed one of the sheepskin cloaks on Athasius, the spiritual head of desert hermits in Ethiopia, a bishop of Alexandria too, and father of orthodoxy. Athanasius had likewise given his cloak, which is, I guess, sort of like the order of the office in as to what a judge would wear when he puts on his robe to preside over a court, or the clothing that a priest would wear to preside over his flock in the church. Athanasius had likewise given his cloak to Anthony and later wrote Anthony's biography, just as Gregory later wrote Benedict's. Anthony's feast day, January 17th, would become the sacred day for the Merovingians and that bloodline in the Priory of Sion organization, which members gather to celebrate on January 17th every year to honor Anthony's success at infiltrating the Christian world. Anthony's body would be buried, by the way, in Venice, France. It was Athanasius who introduced monasticism to the Romans and to the Germans. The rule of St. Columbanus and Benedict in Europe were developed into major monastic communities by the Merovingian bloodline, who provided not only the monasteries themselves, but charters granting them complete exemption from church and government intervention, making them completely autonomous. So, Merovingians of ancient Egypt had assured the continuity of Egyptian error. Gibson hits the nail on the head when he wrote, "Swarms of monks arose from the Nile, overspread and darkened the Christian world." This is the Spaceman's Talk Radio, AM 640. There's more after this. Please direct your emails to spaceman@640toronto.com or spaceman640toronto.
Okay, those emails do not work anymore. If you want to email me, c4lw@proton.me. So with that being said, we're going to tune out of this episode for today. We're going to get back into it in the next part. Part 4 should finish it off, hopefully. And, well, that one will be a little bit more, maybe 2 more episodes will finish off this 2017 11/11. If you have any questions, put them down below in the comments, and I'll try to answer it in the next episode of the AVFS, A Blast from the Past, with Gary Bell, his timeless words. Never get old, that's for sure. Especially talking about Iran, and what do we have today? Talking about the XS-1 spacecraft, scalar technology with Tom Bearden. United States and Israel launched a major coordinated attack on Iran today, Saturday, February 28, 2026, and that was 2017. He's talking about it. So you know these things are in the books. The Phoenix was used by the Greeks, the Romans, the Persians. We got the Lion of Judah, the Rampant Lion, which is in also the coat of arms of the House of Windsor. Got Joseph Smith, Mormonism. Bit about Quetzalcoatl, which the Aztecs and that were also after Christ came. They were connecting him with Christ. We have about Anthony the Great. Being one of the first monks connected with Egypt and Christianity. And are dragons real? They're certainly talking about fire-breathing dragons today. The Council of Nicene came up with the Bible in 325 AD, 300 years after Christ came and went. And all his books were devised up, and they only chose 4 or so connected with him, compared to there are plenty more. And we're talking about the tribe of Dan. That's basically the infiltrators from the past, from Mount Hermon, the Nephilim, connected with the Nephilim, and then the Anunnaki. And even their symbolism is that of the serpent. So with that being said, Spaceman 2.0, helping to bring back a View from Space show, because it's a very important connection with the true history of the world. Have a great evening, and